Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing Jennifer Egan's novel, A Visit from the Goon Squad. Talk a little bit about the author, give a brief overview of the plot, go into what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, and then I will finish off with recommendations, and we'll probably wrap it up there. I don't know yet what I'm going to be reading next week, but let's just start it off by talking about Jennifer Egan. She is a novelist, has been writing for about 20 plus years. This book is by far her most famous work. She won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction for this novel when it came out, I believe in 2011, 2012, 2013, sometime in that range. This is the first time I've read any of her work. I listened to this on audiobook, so I don't have a cover of the book to show you. So I'll go right into a brief overview of the plot. A Visit from the Goon Squad follows a group of characters over the course of roughly 40 years. And the two main characters who kind of everyone orbits around are a music producer slash record label owner whose name is Benny, and his sometimes assistant whose name is Sasha. We also see characters including some of Benny's wives and ex-wives, his children. We also see Sasha's children, as well as other characters in her orbit, I guess is a way to say that. So that's kind of a brief overview of the plot. It really just kind of follows them as they form relationships. Each of the chapters is narrated by a different character in kind of the lives of those two characters. I don't know if maybe the first chapter in the novel is a point of view chapter from Sasha, and I believe we have one point of view chapter from Benny after that, but every other chapter is structured to be from the viewpoint of someone who is related in some way to those two characters, but is not those two characters. And their stories kind of give nuance to the lives of the two characters and show them at different points of time. What I liked about the novel is that in doing that work and that structure, you meet many characters in the novel, some of them more complex than others. I think that the characters towards the beginning of the novel, most of them, the first half of the novel kind of revolves around Benny when he is in high school in a band in San Francisco. And that I found that core group the most interesting set of characters in the novel. As the novel went on, I think there was a shift from Benny to Sasha. I liked the inclusion. I'll talk a little bit more about my feelings about that towards later in the review. I did like the inclusion of music in the novel. I thought that was an interesting touch. It kind of grounded the novel in a reality that was refreshing. I felt that you also, in doing that, these characters felt real, and the struggles that they go through are real struggles that real people go through in their lives, and as they kind of age and change. I thought that there is one or two chapters, it's more of an experimental. I think one chapter is written almost as if it's slides on a slideshow projector. I don't know how that's done in the written copy, but in the audiobook, that is what it seems to be. It's kind of written from the view of a young child, which I thought was a nice touch. Some of the things I didn't like about the novel, I felt that the first half was definitely stronger than the second half. I felt the characters, when we were in the San Francisco kind of orbit, I felt that those characters were a little bit more interesting. And because of that, the novel is relatively short. I think I listened to this on audiobook, and it came in to be about 8 chapters. Each chapter was about an hour and 15 minutes, so it's less than a 10-hour audiobook. And because of that, really, there's a couple chapters in there involving characters who maybe I would have cut those chapters. Ultimately, looking back, I don't know how much they really add to the overall arc of the novel. And there are things that are kind of hinted at earlier in the book, and these chapters kind of flesh those things out. And tonally, not just these chapters, but tonally, the book kind of does diverge a little bit from chapter to chapter as far as how you're supposed to be taking it and what tone the novel takes. I found that inconsistency annoying, to be honest. I didn't find it particularly charming. I thought that I had a little bit of a problem with that. I had an issue with, like I said, some of the characters are very much hit or miss. You're either going to really like a chapter with the characters in it or you're not. And some of them do not, in my opinion, add up to very much. So that was a little disheartening. I felt that while the novel was well written, I thought that a lot of the stuff that I had read in it, I think I've read it in other places, and I kind of enjoyed it more in other places. I know that criticism doesn't always land for people, but the themes of the novel ultimately come down to aging and what happens to people when they age, and how do we deal with aging, and what do we ultimately become when we get older? Do we mature? Do we not mature? What happens? I've read that in other places. The book that I would recommend for people to read maybe instead of this, that I thought was a little bit better. I don't really like comparing books to books, because I think that each book in its own way is unique, and I think this is a unique book in terms of the setting and in terms of the industry of the characters. So I did like that stuff, but there are other things like what I mentioned, and also kind of the book does go into slightly futuristic sections of it. It does go beyond what we would see today as the present. And some of the extrapolations, I think, make sense, and some of them kind of just don't make as much sense. The way that the music industry changes and who it becomes targeted to, I thought was honestly just kind of silly. And it kind of, to me, detracted from the novel. I would recommend, instead of this book, or in addition to this book, if you did enjoy this book, I would recommend White Teeth by Zadie Smith. I think even though that novel is set in England, I think that it explores the themes a little bit better and is a little bit tighter in terms of the character group, which I think kind of overall helped that book, the focus of that one. So I didn't, again, to wrap up the review, I didn't hate this book. I just felt kind of so-so about it. I felt like what it did has been done in other places that connected to me a little bit more, which is a little bit disappointing, because I'm a fan of music and I recognized a lot of the songs that are mentioned in the novel. So I did, overall, I enjoyed those parts of it, but to me, for whatever reason, it didn't fully land. So that really ultimately is my review of the novel. So I don't have anything to tease for any kind of upcoming video. So if you would, please like or subscribe to the channel. Please feel free to follow me on Twitter. And until next time, bye.